Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul and Screen. In this particular video, I will be continuing the conversation on soul ties as it pertains to the TV show Tyler Perry's Sisters. Again, we are utilizing the storyline and characters of Zach, Fatima, and Karen. Let's just get straight into it. Last video, I left off where Zach apologized to Fatima that morning after the whole fight with him and Aaron. And he apologized to her. She goes to work. We go across the town to Karen and Aaron, where she's apologizing to him for Zach's part in it, and that basically just kind of telling him to be careful and things like that. So as you fast forward a little bit more into the day, Fatima is at Andy's and in her office, and Andy is asking how everything went last night. She's like, it went fine. I went home. We talked about it. You know, we had a come to Jesus moment, as she says in the actual show. And we working on things. And so Andy's like, okay, well, cool. And so she goes, well, speaking of Zach, I was looking over the child support, paperwork, and it looks good. Like, he's being very generous. And so Fatima's like, oh, okay, cool. And so Andy looks at Fatima and she's like, are you sure? Like, that was just all on him? And so she goes, no, yeah, it really was Zach. She goes, I had, him put it in writing. I told him he needs to get it done and put it in writing, but all the details of everything are Zach. And so she goes, okay, well, I'm going to tell Karen she should sign it. So Fatima is like, cool, perfect. So she dashes over to her office, calls Zach, and tells Zach, you need to basically, first of all, that Andy is going to tell Karen to sign the paperwork. But before that, you need to go over there and you need to apologize to Karen because you were wrong. And he goes, I know. And she goes, so go over there and apologize. And he's like, so you want me to go over there again so that somebody else can take a picture and send it to Angela, because she's not going to accept my phone call. And so Fatima's like, okay, I got you, my fault, you're right, so I trust you, so go ahead, go over there, apologize. And he's like, well, I'll think about it. And she's like, okay, you can think about it if you want to, but I'm telling you now, if you don't go over there and apologize, I don't know how this is going to play out, because if it was me and you did some crazy crap like that, I would be looking for all kind of ways to screw you, basically. And so he's like, dang, Fatima. She's like, no, I'm just saying, like, you was wrong. Go over there and apologize. And so he goes, all right, I'm gonna do it. And so she goes, okay, cool. And she goes, all right, so you gonna go over there? He was like, yeah. But he had just kind of had a moment where he had a conversation with a guy who comes to their door, and he introduces himself as Fatima's baby's father. And so Zach is like, what you talking about? And he's like, I didn't know she had a kid. And so the guy is telling Zach, well, yeah, we met in DC. We had a baby, but she didn't want it. So she told me to take care of it, and she just left, and she haven't really been in touch since then. She just don't have no communication with him, but he's getting older and he got questions. And Zach is like, what is really going on? So he's like, yeah, so he leaves. And so he's like basically on his way to Fatima ASAP, right? Because he don't know what's going on. The guy leaves and he's like, what the F? And so he goes to Fatima. And he's at her office, and she's like, what we doing here? Like, where my food? I thought you was coming up here to get me for lunch, or at least bring me something. And he's like, no, we need to talk first. And she was like, about what? And he tells her, he was like, so I answer the door, and some dude come to the door talking about he's Fatima baby father. And so she was like, oh, snap. Like, he came to the house. And so Zach is like, excuse me? He's like, and she's like, well, hold on, because I need to call him if he came to the house, and something must be up. And he was like, Fatima, like, what is going on? Like, and so she's like, just hold on. He was like, why are you, like, tell me what's going on? Like, and he goes, you need to tell me what's going on about this baby. Like, you ain't mentioned them and all this kind of stuff. And she basically goes, no, I don't, because this all happened before me and you even got together. And so he's like, oh, I see what you're doing. And she was like, you see what I'm doing? He was like, yeah, you over here playing. And she's like, I'm not playing. He was like, you got a baby. And she's like, yeah. And so he was just like going off, like, Fatima, how you gonna have a baby and you don't think that you supposed to mention this to me and this and this and this? And she goes, she kind of still going on, well, you didn't mention it to me. And anyway, I just didn't want him. Like, I got pregnant. I decided I didn't want him. So I just gave him to his dad. And he was like, what are you saying to me? Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and say that Fatima is now hitting Zach's triggers, right? Like, she is in the point of like proving a point, like helping him to see, since you're not hearing what I'm saying about this whole situation being triggering for me, let me show you what it feels like. So she literally has this guy, I'm sure Madam ended up kind of getting her, hooked up to, so she can go and have Zach understand how she's being triggered in in this moment and how it feels. And so I say that because she's using this to trigger Zach. Like, he literally says that when she's like, I'm just playing, and he's like, that ain't funny. She was like, Zach, come on. Like, I'm not that cold. And he was like, I'm just saying, like, my mama don't like me. And so that was a trigger that she was trying to get him to understand. Like, you see how you are acting because you got triggered by something. This is triggering me. This whole situation is triggering me. So I need you to understand what the way that I'm feeling. And so he was like, no, I get it. I know how you feel. And she was like, exactly. So anyway, that was just a little learning lesson for Zach. And I thought it was funny and probably a little bit warranted as well. So with that being said, fast forward, Zach does go over to Karen's to apologize, and she kind of tells him that she ain't accepting the apology. And he was like, no, for real, like, I really am sincere about this apology. I'm sorry. And she was like, Zach, you know what? If you was really ever sorry about anything you've ever done to me, then we wouldn't be in this situation now. Basically saying that, it's all on him. This whole situation is on him. And again, this is Karen not taking accountability for any of her part, but always throwing Zach's mishaps and mess ups and stuff into the equation when he's trying to be the adult and move forward and plan forward. She always kind of takes it back. And so anyway, he was like, you know what, just fine. I just want you to know that I came over here to apologize, and I'm sorry, I'm trying. And she was like, can you go? And so he was like, whatever. And so she was like, I'll let you know if I'm gonna sign these papers or not. And so he leaves. And so basically he goes and he tells Fatima that it just didn't work out, you know what I mean? And she was like, I knew she was going, it wasn't going to work out. And she was like, she going to sue you. And he was like, well, we just going to have to deal with it. And, he had already, they had also just met with Michael's mom, his 3-year-old that he found out earlier that he had her mom, his mom, to talk about custody and visitation rights and child support, all that stuff. So anyway, they both kind of was like, I guess this is where we at. And, so they have a little moment where, she's like, I got you. And she's like, oh my goodness, what did I sign up for? And he was like, all right. So they go. You go into further that night, they have another little moment between them where they're talking about, what they're going to do about the situation. And he's like, Fatima, I am going to have to get to know this woman. And she's like, I understand. And he was like, but you don't be, you be acting jealous and stuff. And she was like, no, I don't. And so they have their little banter moment, but in it, also have some real conversation where she tells him that, in all honesty, Zach, like, real talk, this is, with Heather and then Karen's baby, like, that's it. If it come up with another one, I honestly don't know that I'm gonna be able to ride that one out. So, and he's like, no, I get it. I think we good. You know what I'm saying? And so she's like, all right. And, so that ends that conversation. Fast forward to the next morning. She basically, is coming downstairs. He's making her breakfast and he's like trying to get her to eat breakfast. And she's like, I actually got to go to work. So he's like, well, I want to go and check on Michael. And so she's like, okay. And he was like, you want to come? And she was like, well, in all honesty, I would love to come, but why don't you go check on him just in case there is something up, and we can kind of come up with a plan then. And he's like, okay. So he calls Heather. Sounds like, that the baby pretty much gonna be watching TV all day while she sleeps. So he not cool with that. So he goes to Fatima's job and he's like, I need to go check on her. And so she's like, okay, let's do that on my lunch break. And he's like, cool. So while that whole thing is going on, with Zach and Fatima and Michael, they go over to Heather's house. They find Michael outside. They find out he don't know how to talk. They find out he's still in diapers. He's 3 years old. They go in the house. The house is dirty, got Cheetos and stuff everywhere, just not, well kept at all. So he's like telling Fatima, like, I can't leave him here. She's like, the boyfriend come in like tripping and all that kind of stuff and talking to the baby all, nasty and stuff because he apparently used the bathroom and they can smell it and he's 3. So he's like being mean to the little boy. And so Fatima's like, Zach, no, let's go. And he's like, Fatima, I can't leave him. She's like, well, let's just go to the office and talk to Andy, and see what we can do. Like, that's the only thing that we're going to be able to do is to try to see what we can do about getting some type of custody or, joint custody or whatever. And so they head over there. On the other side of town that morning, basically the night before, that night after Zach had the conversation with Karen, she went back to her salon and after having a conversation with some of her friends about Danny's situation, she goes back and the place is on fire. Now, when she gets there, Miss, I want this baby and I just want to have this baby and all this kind of stuff, runs into a burning building. Yeah, I said it. The pettiness in me, I got you. But I'm just saying, like, what in you makes you feel like, you can go into a burning building, pregnant and be good? Like, that's just not a wise decision on anybody's part. I don't think she should have did that. Instead of calling 911, she decides to go in and try to put this huge fire out with a small, fire extinguisher. And guess what? It didn't work. So she passes out. Pam gets to work the next morning, sees that the place is on fire, like the fire department is there, and they actually tell her it's a body on the inside. And so she's like, oh my goodness. And she sees Karen's car. So she's putting 2 and 2 together and she's like, this is horrible. Like, Karen came here to lock up the place and close everything down. So it got to be her. So she runs and goes to Andy's to tell her what's going on. When she gets to Andy's office, basically Zach and Fatima are walking in at the same time as Andy is walking out, coming to have a conversation with Pam. And they run into each other. And she was like, Fatima tells Andy, oh, we were just coming to see you. And she was like, oh, I was just out here getting ready to, talk to a colleague, a friend of mine, associate of mine, like Pam. And so she's like, Pam. And he's like, from the salon to Zach. And she's like, yeah. And so they go over to her and she's crying. And so she's like, Pam, what's going on? And she was like, Andy, there was a fire. And she was like, and Karen is dead. And she was like, she's what? And Zach is like, what? And so, she's explaining what happened. And she's crying in between it. So Zach is just like, this like, I just talked to her, like, hold on. And so he's like, I'm about to go to the salon. So he dips out. He doesn't he doesn't say anything to Fatima. He just leaves. So Fatima is looking at like, really? Like, so anyway, she tells Pam and Andy, like, let me get you guys over to the salon. And so she drives them over to the salon. When she gets there, of course, everybody's there. Aaron is there. He had earlier went off on Pam about it being her fault and all that kind of stuff. Now, him and Karen actually had just had an argument that night because some chick showed up at the beauty salon earlier that day going off on him about, cheating. And so Karen was like done with him at that point. So anyway, he shows up and she literally did tell him to go away and I'll talk to you when I'm ready, before the fire started. So anyway, we get to the salon. Everybody's there. So Aaron is there. Gary is there because he called him to look into who the body was because the fire department could not give him any information. So he calls Gary. So when Fatima and Pam and Andy show up, it's Gary, it's Aaron, and Zach was already there. And so there, he's like, I got to get in there. I got to see if it's her. This is Zach. And he acts like he's going to run into the building. And Fatima is over there consoling Andy. And she looks at him and, she kind of looks at this, gives this like weird look, kind of like, like, really? Like, and I ain't mad at that. Like, you about to run into the building? Like, what you, boy? Like, yeah. So anyway, they calm him down, and he's like, get your hands off of me. And so Aaron tries to start something like Aaron. This is why I don't like Aaron's character, because everybody swears that Aaron is like the savior of Karen. And I don't know if it's just because he's supposed to be a pastor, but if you got like, there's nothing consistent about what he says and he does that shows me that he is absolutely, a pastor. Like I don't see any leadership skills in him, like none. So anyway, but he literally is like, oh, now you care to Zach. And Zach was like, what you talking about? And he was like, oh, now you all of a sudden you want to care now that the place is burned down and she might not be here. So, Zach goes off like, man, you better quit talking to me before I beat your tail again, basically. And so they stopped them from fighting. And the other girls come up and, they're like, what's going on? And so they tell them what's going on with the place. And then it's like, somebody needs to call Miss Lisa. And Zach is like, I'll do it. And Aaron is like, don't call her. Like, we don't even know it's her. Like, and Zach tells him, man, like, stay out of this. Like, basically what he been trying to say to him is that, I've been around here for 3 years. Like, you brand new. So you don't tell me how to operate within this friend group. And even with Karen, that's something that Aaron is not getting. No, he is not together with her anymore, but you don't get to come in and dictate anything about like how Zach moves and talks to Karen in regards to this baby that possibly could be his and it possibly could be yours, but you don't get to dictate their conversation, their relationship, or anything, especially when Karen still to this point has not acknowledged him as her man. Like she don't even talk to him or move like he her man. Like when you see Zach and Fatima come together, they kiss each other when they enter the room. You know what I mean? They live with each other and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that she needs to be living with Aaron, but before all this happened, he was sleeping there every night, and still she don't introduce him as her man. Like she don't really necessarily even try to kiss him or anything. Like he always initiates the kiss. Like it's like, can I get a hug? When they had the letter conversation, like he came over, he was like, can I get a hug? And that's what I'm saying. Like she never puts it out there first. She never really tries to like kiss him or she don't even call him babe or anything to show that she's in a relationship with him. So anyway, Zach is like, Aaron, quit talking to me. So he calls and leaves a message for Miss Lisa. The coroner then comes out basically and says that the person in the building is deceased. They didn't make it. And so everybody is just broke down, crying and everything, and like having this, moment of pure devastation and everything. Everybody's crying. Zach is hunched over crying. The girls are crying. Fatima is trying to console Andy and hold her up. And then all of a sudden Karen pulls up. Now Karen is like, what comes up, and everybody stops and is looking like, what the heck? And so Zach turns around and he's like, oh my God. And he runs over to Karen. He lifts her up. He holds her, he hugs her so tight. And then, so here's the thing. I don't think that any of that part bothered Fatima. The part that got to Fatima is when he caressed her face and grabbed her hair. Why? Because that's what Zach does to Fatima. He plays with her hair, and then the caressing of the face. Come on now. Like that was a little much, Zach. So in that moment, Fatima sees, and, so off camera, they're all like pushing Zach off the way out. On camera, they're, pushing Zach out the way and everything. And Fatima leaves. And so they all see, talking to Karen, like what happened. And so she tells them what happened. Somebody helped her out. She passed out. Somebody got her to the hospital. So she's good. But look at her salon. And so Zach is like, don't worry about it. I'll help you rebuild it. And as she does that, as she's doing that, they all kind of tell her like, come on, Karen, let's go to Andy's house. And they leave. When they leave, Pam busts Zach's bubble and was like, hey, just so you know, Fatima saw how you was doing. And he's like, what you doing looking at me and Fatima? And she was like, I'm just telling you, I seen her. And, she wasn't looking happy. But he was like, well, where'd she go? She was like, after you did all that, she went and she caught a ride share and dipped. So on the other side of town, after he leaves and he's like, dang, he messed up. You see Fatima meeting with Angela. And the first thing she's like, am I stupid? And she's like, what happened? And so she's telling Angela what happened at the salon. Like, there was a fire. Everybody thought she was dead. But when she walks up, she's not dead. We find out she's not dead. Everybody's happy. But Zach dang near knocked everybody else over to go grab her and hug her. And so Angela's like, well, Fatima, like, real talk, like, he was with the girl for 3 years. Like, remember how you was feeling about Ian when you found out that he had cancer? And she was like, I know, Angela, but it's not the same. It was the way he was looking at her. And so she was like, Fatima, and she's like, no, the way he was looking at her. And so I will say that up until this moment, Zach had been very clear to Karen that he did not want to be with her. I do believe that this was a mixed signal that Zach sent. I don't think it was intentional. Again, Zach does not tend to control his emotions and his actions of that emotion very well. I do think he was just really surprised and happy and relieved that she was alive. And in the moment, just, again, wasn't thinking and just reacted in the wrong way. With that being said, Fatima, she's watching this, and from the women's perspective, from both of them, from Karen, who don't want to, really don't want to let go. And she really hadn't. When she told Fatima at Andy's house that she's moved on, she didn't move on. She was like, because it has literally just a couple of days. Like, you ain't moved on that fast, right? So she was just kind of, as I tell people, speaking those things as not as though they were. And I don't even know if she really wanted it to be that way, in all honesty. I still believe that she deep down, of course, wanted to be with Zach, and we gonna see why as we go a little further into this. But so from the women's perspective, from Karen's perspective, that was a mixed signal. And then even from Fatima, she's looking, and you looking deep in her eyes and caressing her face and her hair. Yeah, it's making her think like, you still in love with her. And so that's what she told her best friend. She told Angela that it looked like he was still in love with her. And she don't know if it has anything to do with the fact of relief and that he just had been with her. She didn't think that. And so with that being said, you fast forward into the evening a little bit more, and Fatima gets home, but well, no, let me go to the conversation with Zach and Karen first. So Karen calls Zach because Pam reminded her. She was like, listen, you better call Zach and see if you can get that money, because it also came out that Karen didn't have any insurance on the place, which makes no sense because Zach had literally just gave her $75,000 and she all of a sudden don't have no insurance or anything. And so Zach told her he was going to help her rebuild it, and Pam overheard it. So she was reminding Karen, like, you need to call Zach and get the money before Fatima changes his mind. And so she calls Zach. Karen calls Zach, and she's like, hey, I didn't know if you was going to answer. And he was like, of course I was going to answer after all of this stuff. And she was like, oh, okay. And so, she was like, I thought you hated me. And he was like, Karen, I don't hate you. You know what I'm saying? I love you. And so she was like, well, where's Fatima? And he was like, don't do that. And she was like, what? And he was like, letting her know that we're not about to have this conversation about my woman to her, So she just started talking about other stuff and about the stuff that they've been through, trying to just have a nostalgic moment. And Zach actually was kind of, falling into it a little bit. He was like, yes, do make you think. And she was like, again, just kind of talking to him, like, and he clarifying that he don't hate her, that he loved her. But this last time, he said, I love you. Fatima overhears it. She comes upstairs and she overhears it. And so she's looking at him sideways, like, really? And so because Zach don't want to feel guilty or look guilty, he don't rush off the phone with Karen. He's just like, okay, he tries to finish the conversation where Karen is basically saying, well, if you still are going to lend me the money, then can you meet me at the salon in the morning so we can look at the damages and stuff, because I know you was in construction. And he was like, yeah, cool, I can do that. And so his conversation and tone shifted. And so she was like, oh, did she just walk in? And he was like, all right, well, I gotta go. And so she was like, oh, well, okay, I see that change. So she must be there anyway. I love you too. And so he goes, same here. And so she's like, oh, so you're not going to say you love me again? Like you just said it before. And he was like, well, I got to go. And so she hangs up. And so he's like, knowing that, he messed up. But he not really trying to come off guilty. So he's like, hey, babe, you know what I'm saying? Like, you home late? And she was like, yeah, I am. And so she walks off into like the bathroom, and he was like, you want me to run your bath water? And she's like, nope. And she slams the door. And so the following morning, when she gets up, Fatima gets up, she's on her way to work, and she looks over and she sees that Karen is calling Zach. And so, real talk, I ain't mad at her on this, you know what I mean? Because like I come in the house in the middle of the night and you on the phone with her telling her you love her, and then now she calling you at the crack of dawn in the morning. So Fatima didn't say anything. She looks and sees that it's Karen calling, and she leaves. And Zach wakes up. He answers the phone and he's like, "What's up?" And she's like, "Hey, it's me." And she tells him what time it is. And she's like, "I'm on my way to the salon. You still gonna meet me?" And he was like, "Yeah." And so she's like, "All right." And then she's like, "You want me to stop and get you one of them breakfast sandwiches that we used to have?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm good." That's what I'm saying. Like she's already in her mind seeing that he's coming back to her. Now, I will say this. Zach was out of pocket for, the way that his actions at the fire. But after that, he didn't really give her any reason to think that he was going to leave Fatima or wanted to be with her. He's always told Karen that he loved her, so that was no different. The only thing that was different was the caressing of the face and the touching on her hair. Now, I'm not saying that helped things, but I'm saying that now she is back into full, we about to get back together mode. Like I said, she's now bringing up nostalgia, trying to get him to get triggered again, so to speak, and remember the good times that we have so that he can come back to her. Now, mind you, at this point in time, Zach is in a full-blown relationship. He's engaged. And you are now trying to get him to cheat on his fiance. The thing that you got on him about doing to you, cheating on you as his girlfriend, you are now trying to make him cheat on his woman, and you are coming on to him. And so anyway, Zach basically tells her, "I'll meet you there." And he starts calling out for Fatima. And he's like, "Fatima, Fatima," and realizes that she left. So he calls her. And this is another thing where Zach messed up, because I was like, he did this. And I was like, oh, you absolutely asking for an argument. So he calls her and he's like, "Hey, Fatima, you left without saying goodbye. And I see you being petty. You left without making up your side of the bed and stuff like that." I was like, so Zach, talk about adding fuel to the fire. So you grab your ex face, run up, hug her, grab her face, caressing her face. I get home, I hear you telling her you love her, and then you want to get an attitude with me in the morning. Talk about 3 strikes you out. Like, this is just something you mind you, we just had an argument. We really just kind of got over the last argument a day and a half ago, so to speak. And you think that was smart, Zach. So anyway, he does get dressed, he leaves, he goes over to Fatima's job, and Fatima is talking to Andy, and Andy's like, "Wait a minute," like, to Fatima, "Hey, how you doing?" And she's like, "I'm good." She's like, "Let me go get the day started." And she's like, "Hold on," because Andy notices something is off about Fatima. And so she goes, "What's going on?" And she was like, "Andy, like, I'm not about to play this game with you. Like, you saw the way that he ran up to Karen and everything." And she was like, "Oh yeah, that was not like cool." And she was like, "Exactly." And so she goes, "Well, did you talk to him?" And she goes, "No, I didn't talk to him because I'm upset and I need to wait because, I need to process some stuff." So while she's talking to Andy, Zach comes up and she's like, "I don't know how much time you're going to need to process, but he here." And so she's like, "Dang." So she sees him. She's like, "Can you just get rid of him? Because I don't feel like talking." So he comes up, he tries to talk to Fatima, and she's like, "Zach, I'm at work." And so she's like, she just walks off, and Andy is trying to explain to Zach what he did, and he's like, "She really mad." And even Andy was like, "Well, I mean, yeah, like, you mean to tell me you really don't understand why she mad?" And he was like, "No, you explain it." She was like, "Your ex," so she's explaining to him, "You went and ran Fatima. I mean, you left Fatima and ran to see what was going on with your ex." And he was like, "We all thought she was dead." And she was like, "Yeah, but you missing the point. Like, this is your ex. You left your significant other and you went to run after your ex, and then everything that played on after that." And Zach is like, "Well, I didn't mean to." And she's like, "Okay, so you didn't mean to, but you did. So now what?" And he's like, "I'm just trying to help." And she basically tells him, like, "Zach, that's the problem. Stop trying to help Karen." Like, he's missing all of this. And he is still trying to be kind of cool with Karen because he don't know if the baby is his. But at the same time, he's not realizing he's going overboard. And so that was Andy really trying to help him catch a clue, so to speak, since he missing these balls that's being tossed up in the air like every which way. He is missing it. But anyway, I'm going to end this particular review and video here. Let me hear your thoughts. What do you think about the whole situation in regards to how the fire, Zach at the fire, how he left Fatima? Tell me your thoughts. What do you think? Do you think Fatima was overreacting? Do you think Karen, truly was picking up some mixed signals by him? Or was she just kind of not even really over Zach yet and just was looking for any opportunity and door to be open, which I think that's kind of what she ran into. So let me know what you think. Again, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and we will get back into the next conversation on the next video. Bye.